I'm going to keep this intro short and sweet because David has been a regular here, a proud supporter of the homeschool community, and so he almost needs no introduction. Today, we're going to meet the maker, history lessons for big kids. Guys, before we go any further, please scroll down, hit the big red subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. As always, you can find me right on down in the comments or over on Instagram at Making Everyday Magic. While you are here, be sure to go follow David at History for the Ages. He does also have an Instagram account. I will link every way that you can possibly find him, including his Teachers Pay Teachers store right down below. He's an incredibly valuable asset to the homeschool community and someone who is intentionally serving us as our kids get older, which, as you know, is really hard. So thank you to David for including older kids in his focus. We appreciate you. You are valuable to us. Now let's jump into our interview. David, thank you for coming and chatting with me.
Of course.
Let's start with, for those, I can't imagine it's many, but for those few of my audience who don't actually know who you are, can you give us a little bit of who you are and your background?
Sure. So my name's David. I have my little YouTube channel, History for the Ages. I've been a history professor now for 27 years, teaching mainly Western civilization and history of the Middle East. And I absolutely love teaching history. It's a great passion of mine. And just luckily, over the last few years, when I had to go online and put all my lectures for my students online, it got picked up by some homeschoolers. And just very nicely, my YouTube channel started to grow. We're pushing like 18,000 subscribers now,
Amazing.
and yeah, I remember when we first talked, I think I had like 3,000, and that was not even 2 years ago, I think.
It's
So
amazing.
it's growing really nicely. And then I had a lot of people ask me about creating unit studies, so I've been doing that for them. And yeah, I've had even just people in the community, my social media community help me. Like right now, one of my weak spots were always my thumbnails. And so homeschooling mom and her daughter, they've been sending me thumbnails to update them, and they look so much better, I gotta say. I'm like, so some of them that have been updated in my little like 3-minute history playlist, they did all those, they look great. So
Amazing.
it's just been fun working with everybody and just kind of doing it, when I have a little bit of time here and there. Or obviously family's always the priority, but when I have some time, I love doing this.
Fantastic. Okay, so you answered, like, I think my first half of questions, because I was going to start with when and why did you start embracing technology to help teach?
So technology to help teach. I mean, 27 years I've been teaching, 27 years. Now, of course, this is going to age me a bit because the technology I started with was overhead transparencies.
Gosh, I
Uh,
remember those from school.
but those were technologies, right? That you would have to, but that's what I used. And then, one of the things that I remember that I was one of the early people to use, that was a lot of fun in class, is Google Earth. When that first came out, where I would just, do this little video thing, and it would zoom into all these historical places. Like you can zoom right into the Colosseum and see all that fun stuff. And so, anytime I could use it, I have. But I will say this: if you're a really good history professor, you shouldn't need the technology. The technology adds, right? It's great
Sprinkles.
stories, but I could literally go outside in under a tree, tell the story of the Persian War, and it's like sitting around a campfire telling a great story every night, right? And get the students involved and ask them questions and get them engaged in it. And so the technology is always great, but even when I get new professors coming in, and a lot of these younger professors today are so into the technology and using all this stuff, I want to see what they could do without it. I had a friend of mine who told me years ago, how you saw a good science fiction movie? Saw a good science fiction movie if it doesn't have big special effects.
Oh, yeah.
Remember like the old Twilight Zones?
The suspense. It was all
They were
suspense.
great. Nothing fancy, no CGI. They were great. So it's kind of, I think, the same idea with teaching history. Technology is great, but it's, just the presentation of it, I think, matters so much.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've already touched on it a bit, but your experience with the homeschool community and then what led you to kind of embrace the homeschool community, because I think you really have.
Yeah, well, for me, even before I went online, years ago, I've always had a good rapport with my students. I talk to them, I engage with them. And I started to, as I started telling my students, they're like, yeah, I was homeschooled. I'm like, this is a great student. And then another student, like, yeah, I was homeschooled. And they were a great student as well. And I started to notice this pattern where so many of my students who were homeschooled were great students. And so as that began to happen, I started to kind of research it a bit more and kind of see what's going on. And I really saw that homeschoolers are more engaged, they're more interested. I literally just put
You
out a
did. It's
video
a good video.
yesterday,
It's a
right,
good video.
about why
I'm gonna I'm
homeschoolers
gonna write down.
make
I'm gonna link it.
better college students. And I just ran through all of it. They're happier, they're more engaged, they enjoy learning. And I explain why each of those things happen. So if anyone wants to get a chance to watch that, please do and share. One of the reasons I made it is because as I've been on some homeschool Facebook groups and such, I see a question on, oh, my relatives, they're poo-pooing the idea of homeschooling. And I thought, this could be something they could show that here's a college professor of 27 years telling them directly, hey, homeschoolers are doing well. And I think one of the biggest myths that I definitely included in the video is the whole, oh, they're not socialized. They're really smart, but they're not socialized. And in reality, is I find they can carry on a conversation better. They're more engaged with people. And I explain all why that is in the video. So definitely and then I've also done guest lectures for a homeschooling community center. And this is again all before I even went online. So I think when this all happened, it just kind of came together really nicely to use my YouTube to now help them, in another way. So it's been great.
Here's my next question of
Yeah.
what do you want homeschool parents and kids to know? You just answered that.
Yeah, they're doing great.
And you've
Yeah.
already answered when you decided to start offering the written unit studies for your online lessons. And you're
Yeah, I
saying
mean,
that's
basically with that, the unit studies, I had parents ask me, and they said, do you have any? Because first I put the videos out, and they said, do you have anything? And again, it took me some time. I had to talk to a few friends of mine, like, how do you use this and so forth. So I created some unit studies, and first I started small with just a couple of them, but now literally you could use my unit studies to take my entire early Western Civ class, modern Western Civ class, history of the Middle East, and I've created like bundles for people if they want to buy them that way. I have a teachers paying teachers site, but I'll be honest with folks, if anybody's watching this and interested, it's better if they just contact me directly because on teachers paying teachers, they take a good chunk. And so the prices are a lot higher there. So, you have my Facebook, my YouTube, they can email me. It's just David in History for the Ages at gmail.com. And I always have the prices lower. I have a couple videos on my YouTube channel, one that just walks them through a unit study, right? Just literally what it looks like, free unit study so they can look at it. And I have all the details and the descriptions there and everything. And some of them are as low as $4, and some are a little bit more because there's just more involved and more material in there. But the videos are always free. People can always watch the lectures for free.
okay, so this leads right into my next question.
Mhm.
What would you say we did your whole, early civilizations course with your
Right.
teachers paid teachers with your unit studies? What equivalent do you think that would be that we
Okay,
could
so
use
this
transcripting or anything like that?
Yeah, so this one, I'm not, I don't want, and I put this when I tell people, I'm not sure, right? Because I think it varies state to state, because I don't know what, state requirements are for this or that. For me, I would say this, if a student takes all my unit studies and watches all my lectures and does all the unit and the parents grade it and look at it, they would have the knowledge, the complete knowledge of everything from early Western Civ, modern Western Civ, and the history of the Middle East. What that would count and what check boxes they could check if they have to get it certified, that I don't know,
Okay, so
right?
that'd fall on the parent then to see, because I know here in Texas we can look up, what the equivalent hours is to be a half
Yeah.
credit, full credit, things like that.
Hours wise, you're taking three full classes, right? In terms of the number of hours it would take to watch all my content and then do the unit studies and complete it, you're taking three classes if you get all my unit studies. And then I know some people need World Civ instead of Western Civ. And for that, what I say is you could always supplement my stuff with some other things on history of Asia or Latin America, and parents can always find some extra things and then check off the box. Yeah, it was a world civ as opposed to just Western civ. So there's just definitely different ways to do all that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let me just throw this one in there. What does that mean for the future of history for the ages? What's coming next?
Well, I've got all my unit studies pretty much done. So I think what I'm working on now is just creating more new videos and more new content not so much for more courses, but just more supplemental in material. Down the line, one of my big goals, and this I just don't have time to do this now, it's probably going to have to be when I retire, is I used to teach a lot of US history, but I haven't done that in a while. And at some point, I'll probably create an entire series on US history. The videos, the unit studies, but that's probably years away. So for now, it's just
Small
about
kids.
reaching. I really want to do a better job reaching. I have a lot of subscribers, but I want to get more people to view the material and use it. So I think that's going to be kind of my focus as I have time, is just kind of reaching a wider audience. And that's where I could always use everybody's help, right? I'm like kind of a one man show doing this. Some of these YouTube channels have entire production crews
At it.
and everything, right? And you know this, you do this by yourself too. So
It's hard
it,
to balance work and kids and
right.
filming, and especially filming, I think, with kids, because they're just
Yeah, it's
they just
tricky.
exist
And,
and
and
are
you know, for
noisy.
me, this isn't my knock on wood career where I make money. I mean, it makes a little, I mean, obviously YouTube revenue is very low. I make
Mhm.
a little bit more with the unit studies. And for me, it's just a little bit extra. Some of it I donate even, any of the units, some of the unit studies, profits I donate as well. So it's a little extra, but for me, it's more just helping and reaching more people. And
We
so the more
appreciate
people
it.
I could reach and watch, you know, the better. And if it makes a little revenue, yay, it
It's
helps too.
really big to have, resources for big kids. It's a really big
Absolutely.
deal. It's
Yeah.
lacking,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, so when do you think parents should start teaching history?
When they're born.
I agree with you. I
Yeah,
know that
and
you've got
obviously
your
it's always
videos.
age appropriate. There are, things you could do from the time they're very young. Family history to me is really big. Just having them talk to grandma and grandpa about what they lived through. That's, is special and that's some of the first history students learn. But I took my daughter to a US Revolutionary reenactment and she had a blast. She met George Washington, right? And she had fun. One of her favorite things she did is she learned how to make a quill, a writing quill.
Oh,
And the
yes,
guy was
quills.
there, and she's 6, and she learned how to make a writing quill. She totally loved it. And so there's always things, museums. Sometimes museums are a little hard for the littles because it's like they don't get it. But I think there's just always ways to bring it in, to make it fun, to make it interesting. So I would say as young of age as possible to do it.
Okay, so what are your tips to help parents get their kids excited about history?
Make it fun, make it personable. One of the things I'm actually going to put out another video. Um, I've got it done. I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to release it, but why study history? And it's a little hard with the younger ones, but as they get older, one thing I tell students, and this is what I tell my students the first day, and this might work really well with older ones like are in like, I don't want to study history, and this stuff happened thousands of years ago. What do I care? So number one, I tell them, if you're going to travel anywhere, see anything, if you don't know history, the places you see are meaningless. An example I always, tomorrow's D-Day. Tomorrow's the 80th anniversary of D-Day, right? And if you don't know anything about that history and you're at Omaha Beach or it's sand and water, you might as well be at your local beach. It means nothing. But if you know that 80 years ago, 18, 19-year-old boys laid down their lives so we could be free today, and you know the history and the people and the stories of the individuals and what they went through, when you're on that beach, it resonates with you. It means something to you. So I think that's one tip I would tell to parents is to tell them, if you study the history, everything around you has meaning. And also, things that happened thousands of years ago do impact us today. Our religion, our language, our politics, our games, the Olympic Games, running a marathon. Why do we have a marathon? Because some dude ran 26 miles during the Persian War and then died. And telling them about the war, about the Battle of Marathon. And so, trying to make the connections, I think, makes it more interesting as opposed to here's a bunch of names, here's their dates. I tell my students if they memorize any dates of when people born and died, I'm going to be upset with them. History is not about memorizing dates and names and memorizing capitals. I think there's a little bit too much of that and more about why things happen, impacts, and that I think makes it more exciting for people.
I agree with you. That's our approach. I
Yeah.
don't make them memorize that stuff. I want you to love it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you can look all that stuff up. I remember when I was a kid, I had to memorize every capital of every state, and I dreaded it. And I'm like, what was the point of that?
Especially
Right?
now, we have our
Instead,
phone.
yeah, well, even back then you could look up, but instead, I'd rather know what important things happen in each state. Give me that. Give me, why, maybe even why a capital is named that, right? That's more interesting to me than, the capital, because oftentimes, like, or team nicknames is a good way to do it. Why are certain teams nicknamed a certain way? Well, 49ers from, the Gold Rush, right? Whatever it is, that makes it more interesting even. So there's just different ways to do it that I think are more engaging.
Completely agree with that. Now,
Yeah.
let's pivot just a little bit from
Sure.
history specifically. You're a college professor, and that
Yeah.
is a big sweat for homeschool parents is getting them
Okay.
into college. So,
Right.
what would you like homeschoolers to know just about the college process?
Okay. So first of all, again, I have another video. Is college even for you? And I come from a family whose parents never graduated college. They were refugees. They made the American dream happen. So I always, and I have a video explaining this. I don't even think parents should sweat. Hey, I must send my kids to college, right? There's vocational. There are a lot of um, entrepreneur possibilities without going to college. If I have a child like they want to go into, they want to be a biologist, then yeah, one thing I definitely would recommend is looking at community colleges because you save a lot of money to basically learn exactly the same thing. Definitely, I would, if they're definitely interested, you want to really start thinking about the process as early as ninth grade, 10th grade, dual enrollment. I don't know what states
Huge.
have it. No, in California, it's really big, but that's something I would highly recommend. Is if you can get into a dual enrollment class and then just take a class like at a community college while they're still in high school. I think that's a good way to prep and kind of familiarize yourself with what the colleges are like and things of that nature. And it's no secret, I've got some issues with what's going on in colleges today. And so, I like I said, it's not for everybody. And I'm also believing colleges need a big reset right now, the way things are going.
Lots of things need to be reset right now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So that answers my next question because you have been vocal that college
yeah.
isn't for everybody, which is refreshing to hear somebody who obviously prides yourself on your education and
Oh yeah,
providing education.
I
So I
love
think that's a
teaching in
big deal.
college, but yeah, absolutely. And it's not just not for everyone college. And this may not make a lot of people happy, but I'll say it because I'm in the trenches of it. What I've seen in colleges this year is very disturbing to me, especially in California, New York, with the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. I mean, there are massive Facebook groups and Jewish families are literally having conversations. I was actually on a local news reporter was talking to me about this about a month ago, asking which colleges are safe for Jewish families to send their kids to. And this echoes to me back to the 50s and 60s when we had the same issue with, black students who were like, they can't go to this school or that school, and they have to bring in the National Guard. And there's something wrong. Just the fact those conversations are even being had, there's something wrong.
Hard to
And
believe. It
yeah,
it truly is hard. We don't I don't know that here in Texas we have the same
it's not as bad in Texas.
not on college campuses, but we've got whole other wars being waged on women and women's rights
Yeah,
and things like that. There's a
yeah.
lot.
Every state has its own issue. Look, if I was in some issues that are lean more left, Texas is not as friendly. On other issues that lean more right, California is not as friendly.
Exactly.
And so,
Exactly.
if you're a Jewish student, I'd rather send them to Florida and Texas, frankly, than California and New York. I went to UCLA, and I don't know if you saw what happened there, but they destroyed the campus. They made it horrid. And I just saw yesterday it was in Columbia University. Um, Columbia had to settle a lawsuit because Jewish students, were not being treated safely. And that's Columbia, and it's these Ivy League schools. So it's problematic, and I'm hoping that it does gain a little bit more attention. And I made videos on this topic as well. I tend to try to just do the history, but when there's big important things like this happening, I do feel like kind of a sense of responsibility to objectively report what's going on and say, hey, these are things that are problems.
This truly resonates with you because, like you
Yeah,
said, your parents are refugees of the same kind of
yeah,
situation, the same kind of
yeah,
anti-Semitism.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I tell people the rallies we see on college campuses today, and I'm always big on, being an academic, free speech is key. And freedom of expression, and even ideas I don't like, I think should be free, right? But
Absolutely.
these are not like your 1960s anti-war protests. These remind me much more of like your 1930s Nuremberg rallies. And that's something that I've not seen before on colleges. And it's not just, hey, we want to support a group, it's we hate a group. And I think
A
that's the
different motivation.
right. Yeah.
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 Okay. So, and this probably answers my next question.
Yeah.
Someone who's on the front lines of a university, what do you wish more people knew? Do you feel like
Uh,
there's anything you want to add to that? Because
no,
I
I
think you
think
did a
that's
really good job.
pretty much it. I think it's just that when you send your kids to college, make sure they're prepared that they may not get the well-rounded education they should. That I think it does need a bit of I think there's too much politics all around. That on both elements, whether in some places there's too much politics from the right, other places there's too much politics from the left. And I think it needs to be more about education, right? Bubbles are bad. Thought bubbles are bad. It doesn't matter if you grow up in a super religious, conservative thought bubble, or if you grow up and you go to college and you're in an uber left-wing thought bubble. I just those things are healthy. I think you need to be exposed to different ideas and different perspectives. And colleges, I think, have become, I sometimes say this, more about indoctrination than education. And that's not good. And so I think that's one thing I would tell parents about it is to be aware of that at least. And then if you're aware of that, then you can kind of go from there.
Okay, so
And,
you use your platform to educate about history, to
mhm,
help truly to help the rest of us
yeah,
understand what's going on in today's current events and in the world.
yeah.
Which of your videos do you wish more people would watch?
Well, right now, definitely the material on the history of Israel. It actually are being watched more than before, which is happy and sad because I'm glad people are watching it. It's sad that they're watching it because of the conflicts. I wish there weren't any conflicts. But as I tell people, it's one of those areas. I mean, history literacy is bad all around, even in American history, European history. But then you get into other areas like the Middle East, and forget about it. They don't know anything. And I tell you, you can't understand the history of Israel with a 10-second TikTok. And that's where a lot of people are getting their history from. It's scary. And they're getting these images with short little blurbs that are just not historically or factually accurate. And I'm as much as I am a Zionist and proud to be because I know what the word means. It doesn't mean you can't be critical of any state and any nation. I tell you can be critical of Israel, and that's fine. A Zionist means you believe Israel has a right to exist. That's it. But people don't even understand that term. And therefore, it creates, misunderstandings and hate even because they simply don't understand the full history of things. So I think that's something that's sometimes problematic. And so just learning that history from the beginning to the end is what's really helpful. It's 3,000 years of history. And one hand, it's very complex because it's thousands of years of history. But on the other hand, if you know the history, I think it becomes very clear. It's just people don't know the full history. And I think that's where the problems are.
Absolutely. As
Yeah.
your videos have become more watched and you've put out more videos about Israel and things like that,
Mhm.
have you, and being on a college campus, have you
Yeah.
experienced more pushback, hate, anti-Semitism yourself?
Obviously, look, 98% of the comments I get are positive. But yeah, I mean, YouTube filters some comments which are good that they should be filtering. And, that's just the reality. You're going to get that with any issue. But I think because when people look at my stuff, it is still objectively honest, right? That history there are interpretations when you study history. And I really go out of my way to give all the different interpretations, all the different ideas. So if somebody's looking at this with a blank slate, they would finish watching it and go, all right, I don't see this as somebody pushing an agenda. They would see it as somebody presenting the entire history in full facts. So I do get a little bit about that, but I only get that from really the extreme fringes. And you're not going to make everyone happy. And yeah, working at a community college, actually, we've had very little incidents of anti-Semitism. It's more the big universities, but yeah, I mean, I've seen some the images on the halls and faculty doors that are disturbing. That I don't think would be okay if they were targeted against the LBGT community or the Black community or anybody else. But it's being accepted for this, and so it's minor where I teach, honestly, but it's very bad in other universities. And I think that's just the reality. And, we all have to kind of do our part to kind of understand and explain that well. So that's kind of what I try to do.
Do a great job. I
Okay.
think you do a great job. I think you do a good job of providing one, so much information,
Yeah.
but in a very balanced, even and not suffocating kind of way. Like
Yeah.
it's a dose we can take, I think.
I
To
think that's how you have to do it. If you just go in saying, hey, you're an idiot because you don't understand this, you're not going to convince anybody. You're not going to appeal to anybody. But if you say, okay, this is where this idea comes from, but this is why this idea is mistaken. And you break it down with facts and data in a respectful manner. I think, look, I've been teaching a history of the Middle East on a college campus for 25 years, and I don't have students yelling and screaming at me every semester. So just the fact I could teach a class like that for that long without it becoming, I think I could count in one hand the number of students who've had issues with the way I taught or what I said. And to have literally thousands of students over the years and have that many incidents, I hope that would speak for itself.
especially, I think
And
especially
I tell
through the
people,
last 25 years.
go watch the videos yourself, and then if you want the unit studies, get the unit. The video's always free, so you can
There
watch
you
the
go.
videos, and then I have unit studies on ancient Israel, modern Israel, and then you can those are some of the most popular ones that I've been selling lately because and I'm proud that I'm happy that people are wanting to learn about it, and that's great.
There anything else that you want to add before we wrap up?
No, just all you homeschoolers are doing a great job. Obviously, I appreciate you speaking with me and letting me talk about what I'm doing. That's just wonderful. I love watching all your videos. And yeah, no, just it's been fun. It's been a fun ride. I kind of wish I had more time to do more, but it's okay. Whatever I could put out, I put out. So, I'm not one of those who puts out like a video consistently 2, 3 times a week or anything. It's like, okay, I have time. I'm going to make a video. And so whenever I have a chance to put some stuff out, I do. I have some fun quizzes I've made too, like a quiz on ancient Rome or Middle Age. And I don't know the Rome one's not out. Like the Middle Ages, World War II. I have a quiz just on World War II. That'd be fun for people to take if they, because D-Day's coming tomorrow. To learn about that. So just go give my channel a watch. Hopefully you'll find some things you enjoy. There's a short 3-minute playlist to kind of get started if you want to kind of just see something quick and go from there. But thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Thanks for making this scheduling work. Guys, I really hope that you found any of this helpful, entertaining, or informative. If you did, please scroll down, hit the big red subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. Of course, I will have all of David's info linked right down below, so he's easy for you to find. Thanks again, David, for willing to come on and let me ask you questions yet again. I appreciate you so much and your time. Be sure to go check out David and History for the Ages.